Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Generation Y. Just before the break, if anyone's missed, we were talking about capital punishment, what it is, how long it's been about, different views on it, where it's, which countries still have it, and for what reasons they have it for. I'd like to swiftly move on to talking about how people have been convicted unjustly. For example, in many cases, as you can see, for example, there's a case where a man was convicted and he was on death row for 22 years. That's his whole life gone, basically. Or whether people should receive compensation or receive some type of, like some, not a reward, but something to compensate their loss. Although you can't exactly buy back time, can you? What are your views on whether, like for example, say for example, there's person A and he's convicted, and then after 20 years he's been let out saying, "Sorry, mate, we've learned that you were telling the truth and you didn't kill anyone." Well, what would you expect for that person to receive, or what treatment would you expect him to have?
I would expect him to have a full pardon and like you said, some type of compensation. Like you said, you don't get that time back at all, and there's like you said, time don't stop for no one, and that's time that he's lost. He's never gonna get back. And you can't ever put a price on that. But if I'm being honest, I think that they should try to compensate him in some type of way, whether that's money or whether that's, helping him get a better paid job, whether that's whatever it is, they should try to help him somewhere in his life to get him back on track to where he should be, where his 22 years in that prison should have led him.
So, yeah. It's definitely a case of thinking about how they can sort of be compensated for that, whether it's money, whether it's even just being provided with certain opportunities, whether it's being given counselling for the family and even the person who was imprisoned for 22 years. It's all a big sort of case of what the person's missing out on or what he had missed out on. So really when it comes down to it, you ask the person what would they have missed out on and what did they miss out on. You can always sort of think about being able to sue, whatever they can sue, just to get some sort of money or something out of it as well. But it's definitely a really touchy sort of, thing to, be talking about.
I think like Ahmad said, it's not only him that's been affected, it was also his family. Their experiences that he's never going to get back, their experiences that he's lost and he's never ever going to be able to experience again. So I think that not only should he be compensated for his loss, I think it should be his family as well, because they've lost something, they've lost time to spend with him as well. So it's not only a loss on his part, it's a loss on his family's part as well.
Quickly, before I move on to a bit of the religious aspect on what he thinks of capital punishment, we were talking about money, as Ahmad mentioned, compensation money. For people that don't know what compensation money is, it's money that you receive if you've been wrongly, something has happened as a result. So you receive that, for example, in a car accident, you've suffered an injury, you've lost some time, you've not been able to go to work, for example, and they compensate by giving you that couple of grand or whatever you receive. An example, in California, for each day you're wrongly convicted, in the end you get $100 per day. So working it out, you get $100, $350 a year. Call that what? £2,800 a year in our money, £2,800 living in a cell every single day of your life for however many years, and they're giving you $100 per day. Do you feel it's a bit, it's taking you can't get that time back, and what they're saying to you in return is, I'll give you $100, chill out.
Yeah, but like I said, there's never, like you said, California do that, so $100 a day, but like I said before, there's no putting a price on time, because that's time that you're never going to get back. So I think that they can try to put a price tag on it, but I don't think they can, because, or even say sometimes I've heard, or in certain cases, the victim receives a large sum payment, a lump sum payment, so they're given a large amount of money all at once. But that's not going to help him in the long run, to be honest.
But those years that, for example, say you've got a child and you've been in jail for 20 years and your child's just been born at 1-2 years old, you've missed that child's childhood, basically being a teenager, basically you've met them when they're an adult. You're gonna
Yeah.
think to yourself, "Where's all these years gone?" And they're giving you money in return for that.
It doesn't seem fair, does
Yeah,
it? It doesn't
exactly.
seem fair at all.
I'm gonna move on just quickly on to religious side of it and what different religions say. For example, in Islam it says in the Quran that take not life which God has made sacred except by the way of justice and law, thus does he command you so that you can learn wisdom.
Right.
So basically what he's saying is you can't exactly take someone's life unless it's the law or it's by way of justice, so it's the right thing to do.
Right.
As you know, for example, Sharia law and how it works, for example, in countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar and things like that.
Yeah.
Do you feel that this is correct in your personal view? What do you agree with it, or what's your personal view on it? That's open to you both, yeah?
Right. In that situation, it's obviously in Middle Eastern cultures, they are quite religious in whatever they believe. So if they were to follow their beliefs, like you said, life is sacred, so you should move on from it. You should forgive, love thy neighbour. You should forgive and forget. But it's easier said than done. So some people can do that, and people say that whether you get your compensation then, it doesn't matter, because if you don't, later on in life it will come back to them. It will, if you've spent time doing something for the wrong reasons, right? Something good will come your way later on in life, and that's life paying you back.
Ahmad, I'm going to ask you from the Christian side, and obviously you can add on to the Islam part if you like. In the Bible, in Genesis, what it says is, whoever sheds the blood of a man, by man shall his blood be shed. So basically all that's saying is that it's not exactly right to take someone's life no matter what. What's your view on this?
I feel like when it comes down to it, taking a life because of any sort of crime that may be committed is always a bit of a on the border type thing. If a person's taken another person's life and it's in a really bad sort of harsh way of doing so, taking that person's life, would it really be the same sort of thing? That's the sort of question that you have to ask yourself. You know better than the person who essentially took it. But when it comes to things like justice, and if you relate it back to some of the things, for example, in Christianity, you might believe in the 10 Commandments, and one of them is thou shalt not kill. So, is it really right to kill a person for killing a person? That's the sort of thing you have to think about.
Contradicting.
Yeah, exactly. And how would you sort of go about then punishing that person in a manner that's strict enough, but also a deterrent for other people?
Obviously, this might be a bit of a touchy question, a bit of a sensitive question. We're Muslims living in a Christian country as it is. Obviously, as a Muslim, we believe in the Sharia law, and that, for example, if a murder is committed, the punishment is murder, basically, for the murder. And obviously in this country that's not the case. You get life imprisonment, and depending on what the person will like, if he were mental, etc., he'll get his years, he'll get his conviction. Do you feel that you should be satisfied with this punishment that's given in this land, or do you feel that you should get what your religion teaches you to get? For example, Sharia law teaches you that you should basically
To get justice, you should be able to,
or do you feel that you agree with the justice of the land?
Again, like in Sharia law, like you said, we are bound by the laws of the land. So by that, we should just accept that that person will get their justice. They will have to endure prison. They will have to spend the rest of their life away from their family and friends, away from their loved ones, and they will have to spend that alone. And like you said, if they are mentally challenged or something like that, they will have the right facilities to edge them on the right path. But I think, like you said, there's no compensating for that. But if it was in a Middle Eastern culture, if it was in a Middle Eastern country, we would get our own. We would get that justice. We would get that justice. Yeah.
I feel like when it comes to the country, The law, like obviously Daud's mentioned before, you have to sort of obey the sort of law of the land, and of course it's always going to be different and difficult to sort of put one sort of thing on it because you can't always have the same thing being done for different countries. Of course, as you mentioned, Sharia law as well. It's a big thing, and Christian countries or countries of different sort of religion aren't going to really want to accept that. From a religious point of view, obviously you want to be able to do what your religion says, but it's difficult because different countries won't always be in agreement.
Yeah,
with
they will
everything.
contradict one another.
Exactly that as well.
Obviously, alongside the capital punishment, there are other punishments. For example, there's stoning, like specifically like the stoning within capital punishments. Basically, there's the hanging. For example, that are currently here, like stoning. For example, execution by injection, etc. Stuff like that. Do you think that for specific crimes you should have specific types of what do you call it? Punishments. For example, say someone's just accidentally killed someone and it's gone on manslaughter. They should be basically, given a punishment that's basically a capital punishment. Receive something a bit more gentler than someone who's gone and done a terrorist attack.
I think, like you said, manslaughter is accidental. Yeah, they have killed someone, but it is obviously accidental. It wasn't intentional. It was done by accident.
But don't you feel it's an accident that's too big? Like now, we've got control of ourselves. It's something that should have been prevented from happening, because at the end of the day, accidents happen because of something you didn't prevent.
Yeah, no, definitely, I understand that. But say, for example, you're in a car, you're driving, and it just happens. You just happen to say another car's hit you, and your car's now gone into someone, and it's come down to a conviction of manslaughter. Now that isn't your fault. That's because of someone else's actions. You couldn't have prevented that. Now in them situations, like you said, I do feel like there should be a gentler punishment or some type of gentler sentence. I do feel like there should be justice because it has happened. Though it wasn't their fault, it has happened though, and there should be some type of justice for it. So I do think that there should be some type of gentler punishment for certain crimes.
So I feel like you have to be able to get a person or a group of people to sort of put something on in terms of why or what sort of punishment should be given. Of course, there has to be a unanimous agreement to those sorts of things, and at the end of the day, like Daud said, there has to be certain gentleness to different crimes and things that are committed. But it's all a case of how do we regulate that, and that's something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm going to ask now, just basically to sum it up, your personal views on the capital punishment and whether you feel it should be allowed, and even if you feel like it should be used in higher, especially cities with high crime rates. For example, like in America, you've got certain states that is the capital punishment is in, some of which is because of the high crime rate.
Right, yeah.
I'll start off with Ahmad. What's your view? What do you think? Where do you think it should be allowed?
The death penalty itself, and if you're able to put certain limits on death penalties and the sort of crimes that you must commit in order to go through that, then by all means it should be allowed, because there are really harsh crimes that have been committed and people have only managed to get life in prison maybe. And when it comes down to it, if you're sort of thinking about a religion and their perspectives of things, then definitely death or at least death row or things like that should be allowed. But you have to be able to regulate it, and that's one of the main things. You can't just be putting anyone into it, because like we've mentioned before, it may actually be an act of injustice, seeing as the person may not have committed the crime.
Daud, what's your view on the capital punishment as a whole? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it, and why?
Capital punishment is, like you said, it is some people's views. It should be addressed. It should be quite public. It should be reinstated, say back in the UK. I feel like for certain crimes such as, you know, murdering another individual, I think it should be reinstated, because I think that life imprisonment isn't enough. It's not enough for someone to deter to do that action. And like you say, you know, prisons aren't completely secure nowadays. You do hear about some people breaking out, and if that, like you say, you know, if someone's got life imprisonment, they have nothing to lose. They can break out, they will, you know, run away, whatever it is.
They'll take the risk necessary.
Exactly, they'll take the risk. They have nothing to lose. That's why I feel like you said, you know, if they were to get that life imprisonment, that sentence, they won't abide by it. They'll have nothing to lose, so they'll do whatever is necessary to get out of it. And if they do escape, they won't, you know, be given that justice for their crime that they've committed. If they do escape, they won't get that full justice. So that's why I feel like the justice should be given there and then.
So you feel the capital punishment is the right thing to do?
In certain cases, yeah, definitely.
What would you say would one of those cases be?
I feel like, you know, like I said, killing another individual, but you know, there are problems with it. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying it's the best thing in the world. It's not.
But
it does have its problems.
Say one person's killed 100 people, this is open to you both,
Yeah.
and one person's killed one, they're still going to both get killed.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to get the capital punishment. It's, personally, I don't feel that's fair, unless you just kill them 100 times, which is obviously impossible. But do you get where I'm coming from?
I understand where you're coming from.
So do you feel like that person should have like a painful death, or, you know, where the death, they're punished in the sense that, for example, like electrocuted, for example, they used to have in the olden days electrocuted to death.
Yeah.
In some cases, and for example, in some cases, they'd use a not as a clean, not an axe that was basically blunt, for example, to basically
A guillotine,
to
yeah.
cause that pain. Yeah. Do you feel that something like that should be here?
I would definitely say so. You have to be able to change up the levels of, you know, intensity of the death penalty, and you also have to be able to assess the crime itself and be able to say that one thing that may have been done is worse than another. Of course, as you've mentioned, killing 100 people is a lot worse than killing one. But you also have to be able to, for example, the situation in Pakistan with that Zainab, who was actually really badly, you know, sort of raped and then killed as well. That's an incredibly disgusting, you know, thing that happened. So situations like that would definitely be something that you could, you know, instate something like the death penalty on.
Dawood, obviously we've been talking about how some people are unjustly basically convicted,
Yeah.
and you've said that you think that basically it should be carried out. But say you're Prime Minister of a country and your decision is that the capital punishment is going to be there, and someone's on death row and they receive the punishment, they're killed,
Yeah.
5 years later down the line you find out that they were wrongly convicted. Would you hold responsibility for that person's murder and however many more were wrongly convicted, basically?
I think in whatever country there is, and there is a capital punishment in that, such as the death penalty, whoever is in charge of that government and whoever is in charge of reinstating or instating that law of the capital punishment is to blame, or is to be pointed at. So I do understand that, but the benefits outweigh the risks, if I'm being honest. Because some people get away with, you know, like you said, people get away with murder nowadays, and it's ridiculous because people aren't able to carry out the death penalty or some sort of intense punishment instead of life imprisonment. It should be more advertised than in some countries, yeah.
You've both mentioned, which I've noticed, is that you mentioned the death penalty being because of someone killing someone.
Yeah.
Do you feel that this should be enforced for any other type of crime? For example, basically mass selling of drugs, or trafficking children, or child basically paedophilia and stuff like that.
If you think about things like, for example, you know, selling drugs and, you know, things to do with drugs, you have to sort of be able to put that person in a position where they no longer have, you know, the money, for example. Prison would definitely be, you know, something like an eye-opener, but being able to take away the source and being able to, you know, take away the money from that person will definitely make sure that they're not in the position to do things like that. When it comes to different crimes, like for example, you said
things like paedophilia.
So things like paedophilia. Sorry, that's again, it's quite a, you know, a disgusting thing to do. But so when you think about things like that, you have to understand that again, if a person does something which is where a unanimous decision has been made that is a bad you know, crime, then definitely capital punishment should be put in place.
Do you feel that's the same view as Ahmad? Do you share the same view as Ahmad?
I feel a bit differently about it, but that's because, like you said, there should be a unanimous decision throughout people. But like you said, some courts, like you told me, some judges are more lenient than others, and in them courts there are certain individuals that do become corrupt and can be influenced by others. Now I feel like Ahmad said, there won't be. He said there should be a unanimous decision, but I don't feel like there will be a unanimous decision throughout them people because of some people being corrupt. That's why I feel like the death penalty should be instated, but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be given lightly. It should be researched. It should that investigation should be researched. It should be rightly, properly investigated.
So you got a difference in opinion. Like, it's good that we see difference in opinion. Right guys, it's come to the end of the show, unfortunately. I hope you've enjoyed it and you've learned something new. And I hope it inspired for some of us to think you want to make a change to the justice system, in the sense that you want to end the corruption, you want to end the racism, and things on the lines of that. We'll be here next week, 4:30 to 5:30 next Sunday, with a new topic. And I'd like to thank my guests, Dawood and Ahmad, for coming all this way.
Of course, thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. And I'd like you, dear viewers, for watching the show, and like I said, hope you enjoyed it. Assalamu alaikum.